Alright, what's happening, y'all? Your boy Rico from Street Scores coming to analyze our second and third round picks today. Day 2 of the 2022 NFL Draft. And I mean, just overall, this draft hasn't been exciting. We're not taking risk. We're literally just going high floor players, and we're prioritizing need rather than best player available. Going with high floor, not taking risk on guys with higher ceilings. So it's an underwhelming draft for sure. But I mean, technically, all of these picks are solid, but I don't love it. Like, I think objectively, this grade, you can honestly give it like a B minus C plus. But for me, for what I wanted us to do, with the fact that we had the chance to get Jameson Williams and Kyle Hamilton in the first, and there were so many guys available in the second, there were guys available in the third, like Leo Chanel and Channing Tindall at linebacker, and we didn't take those guys. To me, it's like a C minus. But like objectively, it's honestly like a B minus. Like, if you think about the fact that all of these guys will be able to contribute early, all of these guys are seniors. I believe Mathis, our second round pick, the defensive tackle from Alabama, is a redshirt senior. So they wanted to make sure they just brought in mature guys with mature bodies. Again, high floor guys. You just can't miss on any of these guys for any reason, unless there's some crazy unforeseen injury, which can happen to literally anybody in the history of football. These are like the safest picks we honestly could have made at each of these picks. Honestly, like, this literally the complete opposite of what I would have done. This is the safest draft I've seen us take in a long time. Like, taking Benjamin St. Juste in the third, that was a big risk. That was not a safe pick. Samuel Cosmi in the second, not a safe pick. Jamin Davis in the first, super not a safe pick, super risk taking. So it's crazy that we just did a complete 360 from last year going into this season, where instead of going after ceiling guys like we did last year with our first 3 picks, we went straight floor guys. Now, I'm gonna dive into this video, and I'm so passionate about this topic, I didn't even get off the intro yet. So before I really dive into this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, like I already said, channel members will get film sessions on every player we bring in, even the undrafted free agents. Everybody else that's not a channel member, I'm gonna try to do like a couple of film sessions that I get out to y'all that's gonna require like way more editing, way more organizing, way more time to get done and all of that. But just me turning on a film session and just live reacting with minimal editing, I'm doing that for literally every player. Even if I gotta find a highlight tape for some of these undrafted free agents, we're gonna react to something live and analyze it and break it down. So if you're a channel member, you're gonna get all of them. If you're not a channel member, you get some of them. But I do want to get some of them out to y'all so that y'all can get some as well, so everybody can get them, especially guys like the higher picks like Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson, maybe Mathis. We'll see. And without further ado, let's get it. Well, first of all, it just looks like when in doubt, if we don't know what to do, there's several players on the board that we may want. When in doubt, just go to Alabama guy. Don't even hurt yourself. Just click the Alabama button. I'm pretty sure we just have an Alabama button. Take the best available Alabama player, not necessarily the best available player in the draft, but just take an Alabama guy and keep it pushing. And that's what we did all day today, second and third round. And so we took Phidarian Mathis, the defensive tackle from Bama, and I'm gonna have to watch more film on him, but from the little bit I've seen on him, reading on him, and the little bit of highlights I've seen, first of all, he did have 9 sacks, but the majority of them, to me, kind of looked like it was just the quarterback holding the ball too long, which you can't fault him for. But like, don't expect him to come in here and be a floor of 8 sack guy like Matt Ioannidis a couple of years ago, where he was just coming in, it was going to be a sack, just straight bull rushing the offensive lineman into the quarterback and tackling them both type of thing. He's not that type of guy, but he does come with 2 gap ability. He's a high IQ guy. I mean, that's just all that the Alabama guys do. That's what Nick Saban gets them to do. He makes them technical. He gives them 2 gap responsibilities, so they're high IQ guys. They know how to take an offensive lineman and read whether the ball carrier is going to the gap to their right or the gap to their left, and they know how to react and attack in that way. And I think immediately Phidarian Mathis, it will be a contributor early on. Like, I think he's definitely playing week 1. All of those snaps that Matt Ioannidis and Tim Settle were getting, they're going to him. So like, on the surface, the pick is solid. I just don't feel like defensive lineman was a big enough need to, I don't even want to say reach, because this guy was worthy of going at a pick like this. But like, I just still think there were so many better players available at different positions that we could have taken, rather than prioritizing needs so much. And then it's like the need situation. Let's talk about that. Like, Daron Payne is still currently on this team. Are we for real just not going to pay him long term? If not, are we not going to trade him? And if we do trade him, what are you going to trade him for? I would hope we would get like a second round pick, at the very least a third. We're already done with the third round, so what are we getting, a fourth round pick or later for him? Or are we gonna wait to get a pick like into next year's draft if we try to trade him? Or are we just gonna let him walk and hope that we get a third round compensatory pick if a team pays him enough to do that? I just don't know what the strategy is here. And then also, team need wise, like, we need defensive linemen because y'all created that need. Y'all created the need by not keeping Tim Settle, by not keeping Matt Ioannidis, and now you're deciding to not keep Daron Payne long term. You literally created the need, and now you're addressing the need, and it just feels like a circle of stupid overall for that situation. But again, Phidarian Mathis, you could argue, is worth a second round pick. Now, he said he didn't even think he was going in the second round. He thought he was going in the third. Same scenario with Jahan Dotson. He thought he was going in the second at the earliest. So we just seem like we're kind of reaching on guys. But hey, Bill Belichick reaches on guys all of the time, and it ends up working out. We give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think Rivera Martin Mayhew have earned anywhere near that type of trust, but other teams are doing it and it works. We'll see. If you reach on a guy that you feel like is really good, even though you could have gotten them later, even though most of us felt like you could have gotten them later, if you feel like you should have taken them at that spot and you really love him, you feel like your team can't survive without having this guy, then you take him. But I just, even though he will contribute early on, I just hate the fact that now Jahan Dotson's different. He's going to be a really good receiver. I feel like we may have been able to get him later, and you can even argue that he may end up being better than Chris Olave, honestly. Especially with the situation he's in. But it's just like with the first 3 round picks, you expect to get a starter, a strong contributor immediately. So Jahan Dotson will start, even though technically on the depth chart, I'm pretty sure he's technically going to be below Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, maybe De'Ami Brown, even though I doubt it. I think he's going to be above De'Ami Brown in the depth chart, especially by the time we get to week 1 and it's like the official depth chart. But you know, like rookie mini camps and training camp, they're always going to put the rookies lower for no reason, even if they're out there getting the majority of the snaps with the first team. But like, Phidarian Mathis is not going to start. Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen still on the team. He's not a starter. He's going to be a contributor because our defensive linemen rotate quite a bit. So he's going to get a decent amount of snaps every game. But like, he's not a starter. Same thing with Brian Robinson. He has starting caliber talent, but Antonio Gibson is clearly the guy, and you still have J.D. McKissick. And I like Jared Patterson a little bit, but and we're gonna get to the Brian Robinson pick and why I'd like that pick in the 3rd round more, not like Phidarian Mathis in the 2nd round. But that pick was extremely safe, and I feel like we definitely could have gotten a better player at a different position at that pick, or just trade back and still end up getting the guys that we took in the 2nd and 3rd round. But back to Phidarian Mathis again. I mean, he's basically just as safe as it gets. He comes with technique. I don't think he has a particularly high ceiling. Again, we just played it safe. We went for the floor. And another senior, I think he's a redshirt senior. I'm assuming everybody we've taken in the draft so far is a senior. We're just playing it literally as safe as it gets. But he knows how to play 2-gap responsibilities, knows how to do that. Again, he has pretty good technique already coming from the Alabama system. I would not compare him to Quinnen Williams or Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, none of these guys, but he is pretty good. But again, I mean, Jaquan Brisker being taken right after that, and like Kyle Hamilton going a couple of picks before us after we traded back, and Leo Chanel and Channing Tindall going soon after we took Brian Robinson. My heart hurts. I just can't take it. Again, the draft isn't terrible because we went high floor, and all of these guys will be strong contributors to this team long term. But I mean, with your 2nd and 3rd round picks, you're supposed to get bona fide starters, and neither of those guys are technically going to be starters. And even so, like I said, Jahan Dotson, he's technically a starter, but on the depth chart, he probably won't look like one. And Martin Mayhew even spoke about Phidarian Mathis. He said that day 1, right now, he's ready to stop the run. He's built to stop the run at the NFL level, and I agree. But they say he has sneaky pass rush ability that can be worked on, and they may be able to get that out of him. Don't exactly see that yet because he's not the athlete of a Daron Payne or a Jonathan Allen, but we'll see. hopefully this pick ends up being better than I think it is as of right now. Again, my main problem, just like the Jahan Dotson pick, there were just better players available at the time. Well, Jahan Dotson, there were better players available before we traded back. By the time we were at 16, you could argue still that there were better players available. But the main reason I hate that pick is because we could have had a generational player in Kyle Hamilton and Jameson Williams. And I like getting an extra third. Well, technically our only third after we traded away Carson Wentz. After we traded for Carson Wentz, and then getting an extra fourth, so now we have 2 fourths. That's nice, but I'd still prefer to take Jameson Williams with no third and only 1 fourth than Jahan Dotson with, I mean, we just used our third on Brian Robinson, which again is a solid pick, but I definitely take Jameson Williams over Jahan Dotson and Brian Robinson. I'm not gonna lie, but we'll see, man. I like the Jahan Dotson pick now. I think he actually will end up being a really good receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 4, top 5 receiver out of this class when it's all said and done. He may even end up being better than Chris Olave, who was taken at 11, he was taken at 16. So I think at the end of the day, we're gonna end up valuing that pick way more than we originally did. But again, like I've said, if Kyle Hamilton and Jameson Williams never existed, I love the pick of Jahan Dotson at 16. But it's the fact that we had a chance to get those 2 guys and we didn't to go get them. But we're mainly talking about Phidarian Mathis. It's basically just the same thing. I'm saying all of that about Jahan Dotson to say it's basically the same thing. There were so many guys still available. You had George Pickens, even though we weren't going to take him, so we already took receiver. Jaquan Dotson. I liked Alec Pierce a lot, but we weren't going to take him either. You have Troy Anderson. You have Nick Benito if you like him. You had Chad Muma, Abraham Lucas, Jelani Woods at tight end. I really liked him. Of course, you have Malik Willis. That's obvious. You have Bernard Rahman, one of my favorite offensive line prospects in the draft. The fact that we're not prioritizing interior offensive line or linebacker, or specifically the Buffalo Nickel, sounds like to me, after the draft is over, we're going to go do whatever we can to bring back Eric Flowers on a cheap deal, and we may even try to bring back Landon Collins on a cheap deal, because I don't think we're going to find our answer in the draft at this point. You also had Greg Dulcich, who honestly is one of my top 2, top 3 tight ends. I like him even more than Jelani Woods. He goes soon afterwards, and we have a really big need at tight end. Like, secret is kept, like, it's quiet as kept as it is, like, tight end is a huge need for us right now, as I've already said in several videos why. I mean, Nakobe Dean, the Eagles got Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, and AJ Brown. Like that, like they killed the draft. The Jets killed the draft. A lot of I feel like several teams killed the draft. I feel like we just played it safe, played it in the middle. So I think we honestly have like a C plus somewhere around there, C. So we just played it so safe. Who else was available, man? There were a lot of Sean Ryan. I love him out of UCLA. He was a tackle, I believe, at UCLA, but I see him moving the guard. You had Nick Cross at safety. It's just, and then we take Brian Robinson. And after Brian Robinson, Channing Tindall goes, Leo Chanel goes. I definitely prefer those guys at linebacker more than I prefer Brian Robinson at running back. But again, if we isolate these picks, if ignoring other needs, if ignoring other players that went after we picked or who we could have gotten in Jahan Dotson's scenario where we traded back, we could have gotten them before we traded back. If you're just ignoring the players that we missed out on, Mathis in the second is solid. Brian Robinson in the third is solid. My main problem is who we're missing out on when we make these picks. That's my main problem. The picks themselves are all solid picks, rounds 1 through 3. But again, my main problem with it is just that 2 of the guys are not actual real starters yet. Maybe they will become one when Daron Payne leaves. Maybe Antonio Gibson changes his role to more of a Cordell Patterson role, or he ends up leaving. I don't know. But as of right now, those guys are not starters. And again, second, it's just the guys that we missed out on that I just felt like we could have gotten more value from getting Channing Tindall or Leo Chanel with the 3rd round, and maybe Brian Robinson's right there in the 4th, because we do pick fairly early in the 4th. We're like the 10th pick or something in the 4th, somewhere top 10, and then we pick soon after that, like 7 picks afterwards. So it's just like I would have taken the chance to try to get Brian Robinson later. If you really love Brian Robinson that much, maybe you package one of the 4ths and like a 7th. We have 2 7s to move up further in the 4th to make sure that you get them. I don't know. But yeah, man, we'll see. We'll see. Again, all solid picks. Don't hate on the players because of who we could have gotten. If you isolate them and put them in a vacuum, they're definitely all solid picks so far. But again, my main problem could have gotten better players with those picks easily, and could have gotten those guys a whole round later. Again, Jahan Dotson thought he would go in the second at the highest. Mathis thought he would go in around the third round, probably at the highest. And Brian Robinson said rounds 2 through 4. And I believe he may have been there at 4, especially with guys like I said, Spiller still out there, even though I do prefer Brian Robinson over Isaiah Spiller. Now, speaking of Brian Robinson, I can see why they felt like the need was so dire. I don't agree, but just like with quarterback, just like with any position group, even if I disagree with the player they take, if they really love a guy, I'm behind them, because if they're really passionate about him, that means they're going to do everything they can to get that guy to succeed. So I'm never going to be mad at that. But I just personally don't love these picks, but the Washington Commanders apparently do, and so I'm just going to ride the wave and give them the benefit of the doubt right now, even though they haven't necessarily earned it. I'm gonna give it to them because the passion that they're showing, and they feel like they just won the draft with these 3 picks. So we got to see. But again, as far as Brian Robinson goes, when they released Peyton Barber, they thought he would clear waivers, and they thought they would be able to just bring him back after he cleared waivers. They were just trying to clear a roster spot real quick because of all the injuries that we had. And then the Raiders just end up picking him up. And so they kind of panicked. They were like, wait, we thought Peyton Barber was just gonna walk right back into the building. We were gonna be good. We were just playing, you know what I'm saying? So after losing Peyton Barber and all of the struggling last year with Antonio Gibson fumbling after he started to carry the ball too much in the game, and his inability to pick up 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s, they felt like Peyton Barber was that guy. So they went and got Brian Robinson, and he's a huge upgrade over Peyton Barber. If they really felt that desperately that they needed to bring Peyton Barber back, then they're out there thinking they got the steal of the draft in Brian Robinson. If they value Peyton Barber that high, Brian Robinson is Jesus to these guys, because he's a huge upgrade over Peyton Barber. He's stronger, he's faster and more agile than you would think. He has great vision, which is like a lot of things that vision alone, he's better than Antonio Gibson as far as being a pure runner. Everything we like about Jared Patterson, how he's better than Antonio Gibson as far as being like a pure running back, vision, footwork, knowing exactly what hole to hit and when to hit it. Brian Robinson does all of that, but he's just more physical. He may not be as fast, but you don't need him to just outrace DBs down the field. You need him to get those 3 yards on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. You need him to take away carries from Antonio Gibson so he's less likely to fumble. Brian Robinson is literally that exactly. So, I mean, I think this works out. Again, the fact that we're just such Carolina and so Alabama, with Carolina Panthers, Alabama Crimson Tide, is kind of annoying. But we'll see. Maybe it works out, man. But Brian Robinson's contact balance is probably his best trait. I would say his vision is probably second. And I mean, he didn't catch the ball a lot, but it looked like he caught the ball pretty smooth for the Alabama Crimson Tide while he was in college. Now, as a Georgia fan, I was never necessarily afraid of Brian Robinson. Like, when I heard he was back healthy, I was still far more afraid of Jamison Williams. I was a little bit more afraid of John Mechie. Of course, I was more afraid of Bryce Young. But Brian Robinson was nothing to play with. But, I mean, he just didn't strike fear in me as a Georgia Bulldog fan. I felt like we shut him down with just a defensive line alone. We didn't even necessarily need the linebackers like that. And Alabama's offensive line is really good, but our defensive line was so dominant, and Brian Robinson isn't Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall. He's not about to scare opposing defenses in that way. But for the role that we're bringing him in here, which is to basically be an upgrade over Peyton Barber, he's exactly that. And if the Washington Commanders value replacing Peyton Barber, then Brian Robinson is literally a home run pick, and you can argue it's still in the draft in their eyes. Again, I don't agree. My grade for this draft so far is like a C-, but in the view of the Washington Commanders is like a B-. Again, for the reasons I've already stated, they played it safe. They feel like they've upgraded at positions of need. And all of these guys are high floor, safe prospects. So you really can't miss on any of these guys. But again, my main problems are 2 of these guys technically aren't starters, and all of the guys we could have gotten with the picks that we used to get these guys, I feel like we could have gotten these guys maybe a round later, or maybe trade back and still get them, whatever. But just passing up Kyle Hamilton and Jamison Williams, end up with Jahan Dotson, using one of those 3rd round picks to get Brian Robinson instead of Leo Chanel or Channing Tindall, and taking Mathis in the 2nd round when there were like 15 plus players that I still really wanted available. I mean, that just hurt me. Again, it's a solid pick, but the guys we could have gotten instead, it just hurts my soul. So many of them got picked already. Now, granted, there's still some guys I like that are available, mainly Zion McCollum. He's probably my favorite prospect still available. But even then, it's ugly. I don't even know what we're about to do with these rest of these picks. And watch us not even take Zion McCollum. I'm gonna be really sad he's gonna end up going somewhere that doesn't even need corners, and they're gonna turn him into a starting level corner. Now they're just about to have 3-4 really good corners while we're struggling to put together 3. I'm sad. I'm sad overall. Again, it's a solid draft, but me personally, I hate this draft. But again, to be completely objective and for the goal that they had in mind, this is a solid draft. But again, me personally, as Rico of Street Scores, absolutely hates this draft. Most notably, the fact that we had so many opportunities to get Malik Willis and we didn't. I really wanted him, but it's whatever. I mean, because he failed to the point that, you know, people were arguing taking a quarterback early would hurt Carson Wentz's feelings, basically. Well, at this point in the 3rd round, you trade up to get him if you got to. That's not hurting Carson Wentz's feelings. It's a 3rd round quarterback. If you can't beat out a 3rd round quarterback and you feel like your feelings are getting hurt, you feel like it's too much pressure, you shouldn't be the quarterback in the first place. So I'm really sad that we didn't get really any player I really wanted. All these picks are solid, but I didn't walk into this draft really wanting either of these 3 players. Now, I've warmed up to Jahan Dotson, and I feel like the older me should have been more aware, and I really actually like this Jahan Dotson pick now, but I don't think it's going to be the same way with Mathis or Brian Robinson. Maybe when we get on their field, maybe when they get on the field and they look like Hall of Famers, but as of right now, based on film study, I don't think I'm gonna warm up to those 2 picks like I did Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson's definitely a different level of ceiling compared to these 2 guys, but it's all right, man. All right, so I mean, we just gotta see this Daron Payne situation. I just feel like, honestly, too, with Mathis, before we go, I feel like if you're getting him to replace Daron Payne, I guess maybe you could have just waited till next draft, or Starlu Talele was available as a free agent. There's always going to be defensive tackle veterans available in free agency for cheap. So again, I think after the draft, we're going to hit free agency running. Ron Rivera literally said for them, free agency starts after the draft. So maybe we go ahead and sign Terry McLaurin long term. We bring in some guys. We bring back Eric Flowers for cheap. We bring back Landon Collins for cheap. Maybe we find a way to bring in Daron Payne, and then we'll be way happier with this draft. But as of right now, the draft in isolation, I hate it. But I do have to admit, being objective, it is a solid draft. So again, it's just not my draft philosophy. I'm going ceiling. I wanted George Pickens over Jahan Dotson flat out. Even if I would prefer to trade back and take George Pickens easily over taking Jahan Dotson at 16. We should have just traded back again, in my opinion. I love the Jahan Dotson. I'm starting to really like the Jahan Dotson pick, but it's just not my type of pick. I'm a ceiling guy. I just feel like, what do we pay these coaches millions of dollars for to get players that you pretty much know are going to work at the next level? Like, what are we paying them $1 million to do? You're half of your job, technically the majority of your job, is developing players. So how much work are you really doing? How much money are you really actually earning if you're drafting players that don't even really need much development? You know what I'm saying? So we'll see though. We'll see. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please like the video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please subscribe if you haven't. Get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about the draft so far. What your draft grade would be right now. What players that are still available that you really want. Right now, my #1 player by far is Zion McCollum. But we'll see how this goes. I still feel like we need to find a way to address tight end. But there's some veteran options there as well. I'm definitely going to do a video after the draft. If there's some needs that we haven't addressed, I will do a video breaking down all of the free agents available at the team needs that we still currently have at the end of the draft. So stay tuned for that. Of course, we'll see what we do during this draft though. But yeah, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to everybody that pulled up to the live stream, especially the people that donated. Shouts out to everybody that left a like, was in the comment section debating, just overall talk. I really appreciate it. It's really fun watching the draft with y'all. I'm gonna do it every year as long as I'm not busy or doing something else. I'm gone somewhere. If I just have access to at least a phone, I'm live streaming the draft with y'all, and we're gonna just discuss every pick. It's not just the Washington Commander draft. I'm rooting for us to have the best draft, of course, but I'm analyzing every pick that I can. As long as I know the player, I'm analyzing the pick and the team fit, where they go, is it a reach, is it a steal, all of that type of stuff. And of course, I mean, I'm happy that my Georgia Bulldogs, so many of them got drafted. I believe 9 of them already got drafted, so that makes me really happy, because I think the team in second place so far only has like 4 or 5. And again, I'm not sure if y'all know, but Georgia set a record for the most first round picks ever drafted in the first round of an NFL draft with 5. They also set a couple of more records, but we're not going to dive into that right now, because you know, Georgia greatness, y'all should know by now. But yeah, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose names you scrolling on the screen right now. Make sure you pull up for the live stream at 12 tomorrow. I will be live streaming the 4th round, so make sure y'all pull up for that. If we gain a 5th round pick, I'll live stream that as well. Catch y'all later. I'm out.